Okay, so this letter comes to the village from the engineer. So it says, Jim and Bill, the purpose of this email is to summarize the village's fire flow requirements under the village ordinance, outline known characteristics common to the village's potable water systems, and highlight the need for hydraulic modeling of those systems. This discussion applies to all village water systems, including the east side Stonewater and west side Meadows of West Bay and Woods Creek systems. While each system's treatment facilities and components are largely the same in configuration, they differ primarily in equipment sizing and overall production capacity. All systems share the same fundamental limitations associated with reliance on ground storage, booster pumping, and pneumatic pressure tanks to mechanistically maintain system pressure rather than gravity-based elevated storage. This discussion is limited to the ordinance-based assumption that the village may be required to produce up to 2,500 gallons per minute for a 2-hour duration, and the uncertainty that exists without hydraulic modeling. Interim operational guidance is provided to advise caution until that modeling has been completed and reviewed. Applicable village ordinance, fire flow requirement. Village Ordinance number 52.31. Water demands and fire flow establishes that fire demand shall be computed for a 2-hour duration for required fire flows up to 2,500 gallons per minute. Any required fire flow above 2,500 gallons per minute or with a duration greater than 2 hours is considered beyond the capability of the village water supply and must be provided by the property owner. The ordinance assumes the following minimum fire flow demands by land use. Single-family residential, 1,000 gallons per minute, yada yada. Okay, so water system overview, Stonewater example. The Stonewater potable system consists of the following components in order of operation: groundwater wells, iron filtration, ground storage reservoir, booster pumps, pneumatic pressure tank, distribution system. System pressure is maintained by the addition of compressed air to the pneumatic pressure tank. The system does not include elevated storage, which would otherwise provide water storage under pressure through gravity. Instead, water is stored in ground storage tanks at atmospheric or low pressure, with system pressure being mechanically introduced through booster pumps and air compressor and the pneumatic pressure tank. As a result, both available flow and system pressure during high demand conditions rely on multiple mechanical components operating simultaneously. So I just want to go back and clarify what they're talking about. It does not include elevated storage. That's like what you see in those water towers that are like 200 feet high in other towns, in bigger towns. Okay. So we go on. For purposes of this discussion, the wells and the iron filtration are not considered contributors to sustained fire flow, as they are not capable of maintaining even the minimum 1,000 gallons per minute fire flow assumed under the ordinance. That's really important, folks. Additionally, there are areas within the village's water systems where distribution maintains a 4 inches in diameter or smaller physically limit the ability to convey the desired water flow, regardless of available storage or pumping capacity. These physical constraints further restrict fire flow delivery in certain locations. So here's the most important paragraph, the fire flow capacity statement. At this time, the village cannot state that its water systems can or cannot reliably produce 2,500 gallons per minute for a 2-hour duration as assumed by the ordinance. And folks, I'm going to interject, that is what Dan Dycus told the trustees at the last meeting, up and down, that we have 2,500 gallons per minute, and just implied that actually, I think he overtly stated that the fire chief was just unreasonable. So I'm going to read this again. Fire flow capacity statement. At this time, the village cannot state that its water systems can or cannot reliably produce 2,500 gallons per minute for a 2-hour duration as assumed by the ordinance. Without hydraulic modeling, the village is unable to confirm sustained flow delivery, pressure stability, or overall system response during high demand conditions. Because the village's water system lacks gravity-based elevated storage, sustained high flow events would require continuous reliance on mechanical equipment to maintain both water volume and pressure. This reliance introduces uncertainty during extended or emergency conditions. Significant or prolonged pressure loss could result in adverse impacts to the potable water systems, including the potential for a boil water advisory or damage to the distribution systems. Interim best practice guidance. Until hydraulic modeling of the village's potable water system has been implemented and reviewed, best practices should be implemented to minimize risk while maintaining public safety. These practices include limiting the use of fire hydrants for fire suppression. Hello? Dan Dycus insists up and down that no one at the village told the fire department not to use the fire hydrants. I don't know. I think he's talking out of both sides of his mouth here. Okay, so the interim best practice: limit the use of fire hydrants for fire suppression. Advise local fire protection districts to plan for alternative water supply methods, such as water hauling, when responding to incidences within the village. Dan Dycus has been very uncooperative up until very recently. When water hauling is required, the village may designate specific fire hydrants as dedicated fill hydrants or for tanker operations. Dedicated fill hydrants are a common practice, particularly in rural fire districts. The village would need to specify how many fill hydrants may be used simultaneously to avoid excessive pressure loss or other system impacts. And this is what happened last month at the Stonewater fire. They were only 8 minutes into the fire when water flow when they lost water pressure. Reviewing any available documentation or prior coordination between the village and fire protection districts related to system consolidation, removal of elevated storage, or operation of the systems using pneumatic pressure. Once hydraulic modeling has been completed, the village will be in a position to determine whether fire suppression use of the water system should be allowed, where it may be feasible, and under what conditions. Please contact me if additional clarification is needed or if further coordination with fire protection districts would be helpful. Respectfully, Jason Bose, wastewater specialist at McMahon Engineering. Okay, so it's my understanding that McMahon Engineering was at the meeting, showing all kinds of charts and things, standing alongside Dan Dycus to persuade the trustees that, the fire chief is just unreasonable. We already have 2,500 gallons per minute. It's perfectly, we've got everything we need. So I really urge you guys to run this. I just sent this to the trustees today. So ask your trustee. Ask them if what is in this letter, because now they're all in receipt of it. I sent it to all of them, open copied them all in a group email. Ask them if what is in this letter matches what they heard from Dan Dycus and the engineering firm at last week's meeting. I would love to hear comments and feedback on what you hear from your trustees. All right, folks, glad to be of service. My work here is really done. Now it's really up to you folks to share the information. It's got to be a grassroots sharing of information. If you do that, I don't think Dycus will survive the next election. You need somebody new.